So now that we've looked at the very fundamentals of objects, what we can do with objects, for example, we can use objects to model real-world entities or real-world items like cars, like animals. So I think we spoke about dogs and so forth and so on. Now we'll talk about classes. And classes are like a blueprint or a generic model, right, for the creation of objects. So you can think of it as like a cookie tray, so that the cookie tray, sort of the mold, is basically the class, right? So from that mold you can therefore make different types of cookies, like chocolate cookies or brownies and so forth and so on. I don't know, but something to that effect. So how do I make a class out of this car object here? So the way to make a class is that first of all, you go with the keyword class, of course, and a very good convention is to use CamelCase. Let's use PascalCase rather. That means we have to start a class with a capital letter. This is good convention and good and standard practice in development. So I could just go class here. Just open, close like that. So it's really that simple. And now I must have a constructor method or constructor method. So for example here, constructor. And the constructor here mainly deals with properties. So from here, you can basically instantiate some properties. Let me just expand this a little bit. Make sure you understand this. We're dealing with properties mainly for most practical purposes, and we're dealing with the fundamentals. So for example, our car class here must have a make. So it will take in a make. It will take in a model. It will take in a color. It will take in a weight. And now these are what? These are called parameters. Okay, parameters to this constructor. And so I can say this.make. Remember, this keyword means we are referring to the object itself. So we're saying this particular object will take something. So this.make will equal to make. And this is a very good differentiator, right? Because if we have a parameter and we have a property and they have the same name, kind of quote variable name, using this can also help differentiate. But it's just good practice to use this. So this.make is equal to make. Then I could continue with like stuff, this.model. There we go. So now we've dealt with the assignments of these properties. You'll find out how this would work in a moment. Now, how do we go about dealing with the functions within the actual constructor? So not within the constructor, but within the actual class. So we have to take these functions now and we have to put them in the class. So for example, here it's just simple. We don't use the separator, by the way. We just declare the classes with just a space or something, right? Unlike how we did when we instantiated an object initially. So we just go start, for example, start, and we don't use the function keyword. So start, return, for example, and then what else did I have here? I had hoot. Okay, so hoot, okay, will return, okay, beat, like that. Okay, so now I'm just gonna, actually, let me just remove this now. I don't feel like I need it anymore. And some of this microwave stuff, and there we go. So that would be our constructor here. And now that I've done that, I can then copy our class. Now that I've created a class, I can just make a specific object. So I can make a Mercedes, I could make now a BMW, I could make now a McLaren or something like that. So I'm just gonna go here and just say, I'm gonna instantiate that car1, right, equals to new, call the class name, and then we have to instantiate these values here based on the constructor. Let me show you how this would work. So let me just put these here. So first I have to give it a make. Let's just say BMW, then model S35 or something. Doesn't exist, of course, I don't think. Color black, and then weight of 1000. And now I just want to see if this object exists. So I'm just going to go console.log. And let me refresh now. There we go. So we have car1, model of BMW, color S35, and black, and the weight is like that. So there we go. We have now our blueprint, which is our class, just a blueprint. And now we can make specific cars based on this blueprint. So we can make another object this time. I can call it car2, say new car class. We have to use the new keyword to make a new object, of course. And now we have to have our, I think, model, I believe. So let's just say it's a Bugatti or something. I don't know, GT6, GT2, whatever. And let's just say it's yellow. The color is yellow, yellow. It weighs something like 500, say 500 kilos, for example, here. And I have to make sure it's unique. It's to car2 here. And then I will just copy this and then I will paste to see if this works. If I did not make any syntactical mistakes, there we go. Make Bugatti GT to the yellow 500. So that's how you would make now different types of objects based on this blueprint, based off of this blueprint that we call a class here. What if we wanted to make some default values if the value was not specified? For example, I could say here unknown or something. I could just say and then a, and the weight here has to be a number. So I'm just going to go with 0. Let me just go 0 here. Nothing is defined. Now let's just make a third car here. We're just going to say car 3. Okay, so let car 3 equals to new, and we won't be passing any new arguments here into our class. I'm just going to do like this, and let's just see what car 3 would display this time. Car 3. See that? So our car 1 displays what we have here. Our car 2 displays what we have here, and our car 3 has all of our unknown and a 0, because if these parameters, if these arguments are not passed, it will simply take the default values that we have here. So to make a default value, we just use this assignment operator and we put it here. If the user passes in the arguments, right, sequentially like this, then these guys get overwritten, right, and you get your different makes. So your maker's Bugatti model and so forth and so on, and all your properties. So to recap constructor, we're dealing mainly with the properties of the object. And then to deal with the methods of the object, we can just go like, we just define the functions outside like this. We don't use a comma. Remember that? And let's just say here, I wanted to say make car 3, for example, start. So I could just say start like that. So that's how you call the method. And now the third display here should be vroom. And that's where we have vroom here. So that's how that works. So this is basically what you need to know for the very fundamentals of what you need to know for what a class is. There are more advanced concepts in object-oriented programming, like inheritance. So how inheritance would work, for example, would be having superclasses. So let me just use this illustration. So for example, let's just say I have tetrapods. So a tetrapod would be animals with 4 limbs, right? So for example, humans are tetrapods. We have 2 arms, 2 legs. Birds are tetrapods. They have 2 wings, right? And 2 legs. That's 4. Reptiles are tetrapods. They have 4 legs, right? Lions are tetrapods. They have 4 legs. So we're talking about limbs here. So a tetrapod would be the superclass, the parent, right? This would be the parent class here, or the base class. We call it the base class in technical terms. And then the child classes that will inherit this would be something like a frog, for example, or an eagle, or a human. And then from inheriting the very basics, like 4 limbs and having a backbone and breathing air, it could have its own unique properties after we've inherited. So this one could have unique properties like with feet, and an eagle can have wings, for example, feathers as properties. But the fundamental properties here, like breathing air, vertebrae, or spine, these 4 properties will be basic. These will be the inherited ones. And then you could have classes, subclasses here, like frog, eagle, human, or something like that. So that's how inheritance would work. But I won't be like delving into inheritance here, as this is not necessarily an object-oriented course, but understanding the very fundamentals of objects is what will get you started, because we'll be discussing things like the document object model. We'll be discussing built-in objects like the date object when dealing with JavaScript. So this will just be the touch on the very fundamentals that you need, right? So you must know what a class is, right? Which is a blueprint or a mold, right? To make other classes. We have to know that this is called instantiating class, right? This is an instance of a class, like a car when we make it, right? Just make sure you understand that. And then you have to know what a property is, and you have to know what a method is. So this is just the fundamentals that you need to know to get you started in most practical applications. So thank you very much.